Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cherry Bekaert's Technology Podcast. My name is Michael Valerio, and I am the firm's technology industry practice leader. I'm pleased to be joined today by John Bartz, who is our Strategic Alliance Director with Sage Intacct. John and I are going to discuss how Cherry Bekaert's digital advisory team works with tech companies to provide services around strategy, implementation, optimization, support and outsourced accounting utilizing Sage Intacct. John, welcome.
Thanks, Michael. Glad to be here.
So, why don't you give us a little bit about your background? And you joined the firm in the last year or so.
Yes, I've been in the Sage Intacct, mainly Sage ecosystem for almost 15 years. I was an executive with Sage North America, and then I was a reseller, had my own business for about 10 years. So as I mentioned, I've been around Intacct and Sage for 15 years, have a lot of experience in this mid-market and the tech environment.
Great. So I'm sure you'll be able to impart a lot of wisdom for our tech clients and those listening. So to kick things off, can you first explain what Cherry Bekaert's relationship is with Sage Intacct and talk about the team's experience within those capabilities?
So Cherry Bekaert has, to be more specific, they have two partnerships. There's the outsourced accounting partnership that you mentioned, and then we are a value-added reseller where we sell the software and support it, implement it. We've been in place a couple of years. We've already achieved a couple of awards with Sage Intacct, and I've been working very hard to leverage my historical relationships with Intacct and the VAR space, as well as helping on our CAS, and of course then on my Sage relationship, so that we are in good standing and favorable to Intacct as a partner.
Right. I know tech is a key vertical for both Sage and Cherry Bekaert, so it seems to be a good fit overall. So one of the things I normally see with young companies is that they're typically in a system like QuickBooks, and there's always challenges determining, when to move from one system to the next and some of the pain points on those. Can you kind of talk about some of those pain points for us?
Yes, and let me elaborate a little bit more on your previous question. We are a very good partner for Sage Intacct because of the industries that we're in. It aligns extremely well with the markets that they focus on. So that's also a good benefit to us. But the technology vertical or industry that we're talking about is a very, very successful, they call them verticals, we call them industries, but very successful offering for Intacct. And yeah, some of the pain points and what do we see is typically people are coming off of QuickBooks, they've outgrown it. They want to change from an old legacy system. Maybe it's not supported anymore, or maybe that they really want to move into a SaaS model, which Intacct is a software as a service, and of course the benefits there. So there are many different drivers that will lead them to moving towards a Sage Intacct solution, and we can go into more specifics if you'd like, Michael, in terms of discussing what those are. I'll give you a few. Would be, they really need a GAAP compliance system for auditing, obviously, and a Sage Intacct is the only solution out there that's supported or preferred by the AICPA. So that's a nice point to make. And Sage Intacct really regards itself as an accounting system built for accountants by accountants. So it is oriented in that specific way. Other pain points, we call the Excel is an issue. There's overuse of Excel, which leads to errors. It's very time consuming. You don't have integrations. So Intacct has a very strong API, so you can connect to pretty much anything that has an API or do a file import. So there are other things too, which we can discuss as we go along here.
Yeah. Things that I've seen in my experience is when you have an M&A transaction, you bring on a new investor, you have a separate entity or you're also looking at international expansion, where you have foreign currency exchange issues, things that QuickBooks really doesn't have that capability right now for. So have you seen that typically be a reason why it's time to move on to a platform like Sage?
Yes, and that's a great point. Intacct does extremely well in the multi-entity scenario, has a great consolidations module that's just basically a couple of clicks and you've got a updated consolidation reporting. You can create multiple books and have different consolidation books and reports. The multi-currency works extremely well, does all the translations for you. And it's very easy to add an entity in Intacct. So it's really a matter of less than 30 minutes to get up and running with a new entity. So what that does is support growth, which is one of the key factors too. When I use the word generically outgrow QuickBooks, well, how much can you scale with QuickBooks? And you know that from the accounting side of what challenges there are, and in fact, Intacct makes it pretty easy to the auditors as well. So those are good examples. And
that makes sense. So we mentioned the key pain points, and you kind of alluded to some of the solutions that we offer, but what are the solutions that your team specifically can help provide to support that growth that we mentioned? And then, and how does that differentiate from someone just buying a software solution and getting it implemented? So how does your team operate?
We want to have if you overused expression, perhaps customer for life. So we want to be in a partnership. We want to spend a lot of time in understanding their business needs, their pain points, how we can solve them through the discovery process up front. And then we do customized implementations. So we want to satisfy the needs. We don't want to necessarily try to leverage the client for a long-term add-on services, although we recognize in a growth position, we offer those services, but we don't want them to be overly dependent on us on day-to-day operations. So again, that's trying to build a very self-sufficient and referenceable and a client that's going to renew. Churn is not a good thing in the SaaS model. We provide on the VAR side, we sell the software subscription, we implement it, and then we also provide the support ongoing. So that's what the core team does. Of course, it's a great thing to be part of Cherry Bekaert because we have the advisory and the accounting side, and we can leverage them for program management, change management, numerous things, and we have obviously the expertise in your area that we can leverage too on the accounting side. So it's a much broader than selling software and implement it. And that goes back to the relationship with Sage. They put a lot of value on firms like Cherry Bekaert to provide those services.
Great. And so can you speak a little bit about maybe within the technology space, specifically say health tech companies, and a lot of times they have regulations related to HIPAA and others. So how does Sage help support those requirements or any others that are similar to healthcare or just any other regulations that you can highlight?
Yeah, well, one of the core ones there is if you have to have personal information in your accounting system, there's a BAA that is required to sign, business associate agreement. Intacct will sign that because of the advanced auditing capabilities that exist. So that is something somewhat unique, and we don't shy away from that capability. So there's an example. And of course, you apply all the other functionality requirements that apply across many types of technology companies, but that would be one very specific to the tech. Now, if we look at it from a healthcare company that maybe has numerous offices, then the consolidation of all those locations and reporting capabilities, those come into play, and just core functionality of Intacct. So again, it's kind of a mirror of what maybe a company that's growing and expanding with entities internationally or Canada, Mexico, those sort of things. But just general use and multi-locations is almost table stakes with Intacct. It's very easy and set up and managed to and report on.
Great. And then you just mentioned just overall within the how Sage really works with tech companies. We talked a lot about Excel being a pain point. So maybe talk a little bit about their contract model, modules, and 606 has been the word of the last 3 or 4 years with private companies. Just if you could elaborate how that's helpful for tech companies.
Sure, that's been a great module. It's one of the key attractors to tech firms, especially in the SaaS model. The contracts module manages all of the SaaS requirements. It now this is past, but it was dual entry. You could have 605 and 606 reporting. Now that we're past 605, we have 606. It does all the rev rec you need. It manages if you have multi-element arrangements. So if you're bundling and discounting across the board, it'll do the pricing accordingly. It has the expense management module, so you can amortize expenses relative to that contract. And then you can also integrate, which there's a project accounting module that is integrated too, so you can have that be part of the contract, and of course, again, apply discounts. And even go as far as other things like if you want to set up triggers and when things are particularly done in the implementation phase, and the project accounting module that will trigger rev schedules for you. So it's a very sophisticated module. It is one that's limited in terms of which VARs can sell it, and we have that expertise and experience. So we are one of the core and key VARs that sell the contract and implement that module.
Well, thanks, John. I really appreciate all that insight that you've been able to provide for us. So just what would be the next steps for just to get in touch with you, and maybe what's your process of catching up with any companies that might have more interest?
Well, we'll provide my contact information, so just reach out, and would love to speak with any of the clients, understand their business, get to know them, see if we can form a partnership, and of course we'll do some due diligence and a discovery. Then no fee for that. Happy to do so and see where the conversation goes. So again, Michael, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
And that concludes us for this podcast. Thanks again for listening, enjoying this podcast series. We hope you take a few moments to check out our other episodes that we have posted for the tech industry, and are always happy to answer questions as those on any of those topics discussed. Thanks again for tuning in.